Patty Murray didn't just question Trump's trade rep, she exposed him. When you can't even admit that tariffs raise prices while Americans are struggling to afford groceries, you're not telling the truth. You're hiding it. And Murray wasn't having it.
Vice Chair Murray.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to have this hearing today. I want to thank both the chair and the ranking member. I know when it comes to trade and tariffs, this committee has strong bipartisan concerns, so I'm glad that we have the opportunity to hear directly from you today, Ambassador Greer. President Trump promised to lower costs on day one. Instead, he did slap these unprecedented new taxes on nearly everything that Americans buy from abroad. And now that prices are rising, he's calling affordability a Democratic scam. Well, Ambassador, let me just ask you, yes or no, do tariffs raise prices for American consumers?
I don't think they do. When you look at all the data, I think they have a very limited impact.
Well, I disagree, and Secretary Bessent said on Fox News that exempting products from tariffs would, quote, bring the prices down very quickly. Wouldn't that mean then that tariffs increase prices?
I think, again, the general answer is no. I think with some of those products he was referencing, bananas, coffee, things we don't necessarily make, there you're going to get more of a chance of a price impact from tariffs. Other stuff that we make or have a lot of producers, you don't have the flow through. But I think with those, you could see an impact. So.
Well, I think my consumers, people in my state, are seeing price increases, and they know it's happening. I don't see how anybody with a straight face can't say that tariffs raise prices, but somehow ending them lowers the prices. So I think we all need to be honest. Now, in April, I visited a local candy company in my home state in Tacoma, Washington. They're called Brown & Haley. They have been in business for 112 years, and they employ 150 people. They are known for almond roca, which they export to 65 countries in the world. Brown & Haley told me that Trump's tariffs and trade wars have cost them half of their export business, half. They worked hard for years to become a net exporter to China. And then Trump's trade war came along and their China exports dropped to zero. Now, to keep their business alive in China, they have been forced to license their brand to other products made in China and literally helping Chinese manufacturers at the expense of the American ones. You're their trade representative. What have you done to ensure that American small businesses who rely on sales to China are able to sell their products and grow the economy here at home?
So a couple things. First of all, we're opening market access all over the world in places like Southeast Asia and even in Europe, places where everyone thinks we've had market access for a long time, but we haven't. So we're opening billions and billions of dollars of markets. I'd be interested in talking to the company that makes almond roca. I think that's that is news to me that they had an issue in China.
Well, they're one of many in my home state and actually in this country who are facing the same kind of thing. And in fact, we have farmers and growers who are trying to expand into other markets, as you well know, and they're being thrown one-time limited relief. But our small businesses and our farmers want to trade. They don't want aid. And they tell me that this is really creating chaos, including Brown & Haley, but other companies as well. And I'd love to have you take a look at that because it has had a serious impact to them. Now, I do understand tariffs can be strategic, but there seems to be no strategy to me when it comes to this trade war. And coffee is a great example. We consume nearly 800 times as much coffee as we produce, as you know. I doubt that's going to change anytime soon, and I'm glad that coffee is now exempt from some of these tariffs, but I cannot understand why this administration forced Americans to pay higher for months. Tell me, what did the coffee tariffs actually achieve?
So, first of all, coffee prices were going up for 2 years. I can't affect the weather in Brazil and these other places. Second of all the tariffs that were imposed, some of them are in place to protect domestic supply chains. Some of them were in place for leverage. So in early September, the president announced that he was going to take the tariffs off of coffee and bananas and other things. And then once we had the deals with the kind of countries that send us coffee and bananas, Ecuador, Vietnam, Indonesia, et cetera, then we had used that leverage and we removed it.
Why did it take so long to exempt coffee?
Well, because TPP was negotiated for 8 years under Obama, and it never came to fruition. We did deals with Southeast Asia in 6 months to get all the tariffs down. So I think that's really, really fast.
Well, my opinion is those kinds of issues should have been worked out before we slap tariffs on anybody. But let me say this, and I just have a few seconds left. Canada is Washington State, my state's second largest export partner and our largest source of international visitors. And I want you to know this. President Trump's trade war and insults have driven away Canadian visitors to my state and to other states. It has delivered a huge blow to our economy. Passenger vehicle border crossings in my state are down more than 24% in the first 10 months of this year. Spokane, Washington, Eastern Washington, saw a 33% drop in visitors this year. The operator of a ferry between Seattle and Victoria, BC, has been forced to lay off now a quarter of its workforce because ridership is down 30%. In my state, Americans are losing their jobs and our businesses are struggling. And I just really believe, Mr. Ambassador, we should not be picking fights with our close allies and neighbors like Canada. This trade war has been a terrible blow to American small businesses, and I hope it ends. It has to end. If it could end tomorrow, it would be so much better for my state and so many other people. And I want you to know that, especially with Canada, this is hurting my state.
What you just watched is one of those rare moments where a senator refuses to let spin replace reality. And Patty Murray does something incredibly important here. She forces the Trump trade representative to confront a truth that working families have been feeling in their wallets for years. Tariffs raise prices. Not in theory, not in some abstract economic model, but in the lives of the people who wake up every morning trying to stretch a paycheck that simply does not go as far as it used to. This is the part politicians often hide behind jargon, and Murray cuts straight through it. A tariff is a tax. It's a tax that gets passed directly onto consumers. When the Trump administration slapped tariffs on goods like coffee, machinery, aluminum, even basic household products, that cost did not magically disappear. It wasn't absorbed by foreign companies. It was pushed onto American storefronts, American small businesses, and ultimately American families. That's why she presses him so directly. Do tariffs raise prices? And the fact that he can't give a straight answer tells you everything. If you have to twist, duck, and stretch to avoid saying yes, it's because the real answer is too politically damaging to admit. And Murray doesn't stop there. She brings in real people, the kind of people who never get mentioned when politicians talk about strategy or leverage. A 112-year-old candy company in Washington state that lost half its export business because Trump ignited a trade war without a plan. Imagine running a business for over a century, surviving recessions, wars, and economic shocks, only to get blindsided by your own government's policies. They didn't want subsidies. They didn't want temporary relief checks. They wanted stability. They wanted the ability to sell their product the same way they always had. And instead, they were forced to license their own brand to Chinese manufacturers just to keep their market presence alive. That's not strength. That's not America first. That's America losing ground because of leadership that didn't understand the global economy they were trying to reshape. And the point Murray makes about farmers hits even harder. These are people who depend on exports, who depend on predictable relationships with foreign markets. They can't survive whiplash from impulsive trade decisions. They want trade, not aid. They want long-term partnerships, not one-time checks meant to cover political mistakes. Tariffs didn't just raise prices at American stores, they also closed off entire markets abroad. That's a double hit: higher costs at home, fewer opportunities overseas. Then Murray exposes something even broader. These trade wars didn't just hit products, they hit people. Canada is Washington's largest export partner, a country we depend on, a country we have always had stable economic relations with. And because of Trump's hostile rhetoric and tariff schemes, Canadians stopped coming. Tourism plummeted. Jobs were lost, ferries shut down. That's real economic harm, not an ideological talking point. It shows how quickly an unstable trade policy can ripple outward into every corner of the economy, even places you would never imagine. This is why her questioning is so important. It forces the administration to confront the reality that tariffs are not abstract tools for geopolitical strategy. They are direct taxes that disrupt businesses, strain families, and destabilize entire local economies. And when the trade representative tries to pivot, tries to minimize, tries to reframe the impact, Murray brings it right back to the people actually living with the consequences. The workers, the small business owners, the farmers, the border towns, the communities that rely on global trade but are always the first to suffer when reckless policy meets political posturing. And this is why hearings like this matter, because behind the talking points, behind the slogans, there is an economic truth that politicians hope the public never learns. Tariffs almost always raise prices, and the people who feel it the most are the ones with the least room in their budget. If you found this breakdown helpful, if you want more analysis that pulls back the curtain on who is actually impacted by these policies, make sure you subscribe, share this video, and help us continue to bring clarity where others bring chaos. Here on Left Lens, we stay focused on the real-world consequences and the people who deserve to be heard